Oh, that's funny. All righty, I think we're going to get started. Thank you for joining this evening. If you can introduce yourselves via the chat, that would be great. I'm going to do a quick review and then we're going to dive right in. This is the mission of the NCSA. We want to advance sustainability and resilience across LA through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. We have a bunch of committees and working groups, so you can learn more on our website. Also, we have a brand new handy calendar where most of these meetings should also be listed. And so please feel welcome to join us. We'd love your engagement on all of these. We actually, I think, have a lot of fun in our committee meetings usually. And also we have a Slack workspace. So if you want to join that, just reach out to me and I'll hook you up with that. So we are recording. You probably know that by now, but want to make sure you know. You can raise your hand to participate. I don't know if anybody's on the phone, but if you're on the phone, you can always forget, but *6 does one thing and *9 does the other. Please do follow our community agreements, which we'll get to in a moment. And I'll try to put a link to the evaluation in the chat a few times. We'd really love it if you complete the evaluations because we don't know how we're doing sometimes unless you tell us. So it's actually super, super helpful to hear what you like and also what you don't like. So tonight we're going to talk about wildlife corridors. We're also going to talk about how we take positions. We're going to talk about a bus rapid transit proposal, and then we'll go into announcements and wrap it up, and we should be done by 8:30. Here are our community agreements. Nothing too earth-shattering. If you can, we like it if you can have your camera on and show your face so that we can work to build community even when we are apart. Please assume good intent, give folks the benefit of the doubt, be respectful and appreciative. The chat is super fun, but don't get carried away having unrelated too many side conversations in the chat. Please try to listen intently and contribute. We really like everybody contributing, but also creating space for other people to contribute and being concise. And of course, it's important that we have fun. If we weren't having fun, we wouldn't be doing this, I figure. Okay, I'd like to introduce the board. Dawn, I see you. There's Dawn, and I saw Lorraine. Do you want to say anything, Lorraine or Dawn? Or just wave, either way. And there's Ernie. Oh.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Monquist. I'm at the Institute for Sustainability at CSUN, and I'm a board member. And also, Muriel and I are going to be changing your names based on your voting status. So just be aware.
Yes. So if you feel like it's a goblin reaching into your computer, it's actually Lorraine and Muriel. Ernie is our chair. Do you want to say anything, Ernie?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here today. That's all.
And Dawn, did you want to say anything? And Muriel?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming.
And Scott, who's going to take over kind of halfway through the meeting.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all these beautiful faces.
And now I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Lasken. Let me try, well, I'll do that in a minute. So Andrew is a co-director of Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife. They pretty cleverly turned that into CLAW. Has a way better ring than NCSA, doesn't it? He is here tonight to talk about something super, super, super important. And I'm so grateful to you, Andrew, for being able to talk to us. This is super time sensitive, and this came together kind of late because the pieces are moving quite a bit. So I'm going to just hand it over to you. What Andrew will do is provide a presentation for about 10 minutes. And then as we typically do, we'll just have a conversation with him. and we'll be able to ask him things and tell him things, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks everybody. Thanks for having me and thanks for tuning in. My name's Andrew Lasken. I'm co-director for CLAW, as you heard, Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife. Before we get into this wildlife ordinance that's coming up, I thought I'd just give some background on kind of why this issue is needed and what got us here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about the wildlife ordinance that's going to be protecting wildlife corridors in the Santa Monica Mountains. And to start with, just an overview of kind of our wildlife in LA. You know, some people hear about this ordinance are like, well, what are you protecting, squirrels and pigeons? I mean, you know, there's no habitat in here in LA, right? It's just a concrete jungle. This can kind of be the perception of LA. But of course, we all know that that's not true at all. We've got amazing habitat here in LA. We've got one of the largest urban parks in Griffith Park. We've got one of the largest urban national park areas, the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. And we're way more than squirrels and pigeons when it comes to our wildlife. In fact, a few years ago, some scientists got together and they decided they were going to figure out which states were the most biodiverse. So in other words, what states had the most plants and animals? And they tallied this all up for each state. And the state that came out #1 as the most biodiverse was California. We live in the most biodiverse state. And when we kind of zoom in more locally on LA, we find that we've got that amazing quality here on a local level too. And just as an example, this is the Audubon bird list. It's all the bird species you can find in LA County. And you can see there's a really big list that's kind of crunched in here. That's because there's 491 species listed on here that you can find in LA County. That is a lot of birds. It's actually over half of all the birds you can find in North America. You can find right here in LA County. We do live in the birdiest county in the country. And this number has probably gone up since this was published too. So a lot of really tremendous and diverse wildlife here in LA. And we've got some wildlife that makes us really unique as a large city as well. You probably know that we've got mountain lions. And as a mega city, so a city with over 1 million people, that's really unique. We're one of only two mega cities in the whole world that has a large predator like this living within our city limits. We've got mountain lions, and to find that other city, you'd have to go all the way around the world to Mumbai, India, where they've got leopards within their city limits. So we're really lucky to live in this amazing place for nature that even a lot of residents don't really know we have. And
that's not the 40. The 40 is in front of the McDonald's. Watch out.
Someone's chiming in. And it's really important that we protect these animals as well, because all these animals are...
Yeah, I'm going to mute everybody, and then Andrew, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Sorry, oops, yeah, sorry about that.
There we go. Okay. I was saying, you know, it's really important that we protect all these animals because there's even, you know, there's beneficial reasons even for us as people to protect them. And that's because all these animals are performing what we call ecosystem services. And these are things that wildlife does naturally that benefits our ecosystem, but really benefits us as people as well. And so that's things like pollinating our plants, improving our soil quality, spreading seeds around, all these things that benefit us that if it wasn't for these animals, we'd be spending a lot of money on. And that sounds like a strange concept, like why would we be spending our money on something that's so natural? But there are parts of the world, for instance, in this area in China, where they wiped out their local pollinators because of pesticide use. And without those pollinators, they now need to hire workers to hand pollinate their crops, which is what you see happening here on those farms. So it's very important that we protect our wildlife. One of the best ways to protect our wildlife is to protect their habitat, because their habitat is where they live. It's where they get the things that they need to survive, like food, shelter, water. And some animals are, you know, LA's actually got a wide range of different types of habitat. That's one of the things that gives us our great biodiversity, actually, is we've got all these different types of habitats. And for some animals, they're able to adapt fairly easily from one habitat type to another. Some can even adapt okay into an urban setting, and that can be an okay habitat for them. But for many, many other animals, they're very specific in their needs. Maybe their diet consists mostly of acorns, and so they need that oak woodland in order to survive, because that's where they're getting their acorns from. Or maybe they lay in their eggs in a nest only on one plant that appears by the river. Well, then we need that riparian or river habitat in order for them to thrive. And so if we lose that habitat, we're going to be losing those species. And that's really what conservation is all about. We're protecting land in order to protect the animals that need to live there. And so in the kind of like modern conservation movement, we've been creating nature preserves and setting aside land. And, you know, building our cities, but feeling good because we've got this other land that's protected for the animals and everybody wins. What we are finding is that everyone's not really winning in this scenario. When you protect land and then kind of build a city around it, what you're really doing is creating an island of habitat. And to show you what I mean by this, oops, we're going to go to this magical forest where for thousands of years these mountain lions have lived. And every few years the male traverses through this forest to find the female, and they get married and they have kids and the generations continue, and this is how nature has happened all along. Well, at some point a developer comes along to this area and he's like, this is such an amazing forest. This would be a really great place to build a community. And all the environmentalists get up in arms and they're like, you can't build a community here. We need this habitat. We need habitat for these mountain lions. And he says, well, no, don't worry about it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set aside 2 pieces of land for these mountain lions, and then we'll build our community. Everybody wins. And so they compromise on this. He starts building out these houses. And of course, you need roads to get to those houses and freeways to get to the roads, and put some fencing up for the houses. Before you know it, you've got this whole bustling community around here. And it's true that we've protected these 2 areas of habitat, but now when it comes to that time for the male to go across and find the female so that they can mate, you can see that it's become extremely difficult because of all these obstacles and barriers that we've put in place. And this is what we call habitat fragmentation. We're breaking up habitat, making it difficult not only for animals to find mates, but also to find food, to escape from wildfires, to come back into an area after there's been a wildfire and repopulate that area. And it's affecting all sorts of animals different ways. And with our mountain lions, which are currently under consideration for protection on a state level under the California Endangered Species Act, one of the things that's really affecting our local mountain lions here is the fact that because they are so enclosed in and can't really traverse because of that fragmentation, the mating opportunities that are available to them tend to be other animals that are pretty closely related to them. And we see a lot of inbreeding happening, like these 4 kittens that a couple of years ago were found, and they were the result of a female mating with her own grandson. So their father is also their nephew. And of course, that kind of inbreeding leads to all sorts of issues. We are already seeing in our local mountain lions, this kinked tail here is a sign of deformities due to inbreeding. And that could lead to all sorts of reproductive issues later on that we haven't even seen yet. And it's a big threat to our local mountain lions. And so the problem is habitat fragmentation. The solution is habitat connectivity. We want to connect these habitat areas. And one of the words we hear a lot is a corridor, right? And you're probably familiar with the Liberty Canyon Crossing, which is a wildlife bridge that's hopefully going to break ground, I think, this year. It's being spearheaded by the National Wildlife Federation. It's a huge project, and it's going to do a lot to really connect these 2 big habitat areas and allow animals to cross over the 101. Not just mountain lions, but all sorts of animals that are facing the same problem. So this is looking at connectivity on a big scale, but we've also got to look at it on a sort of smaller scale. And that's what CLAW is really involved in. And as an example, This is the Eastern Santa Monica Mountains. So just to orientate ourselves, this is Laurel Canyon running up the middle here. We've got Mulholland at the top and Hollywood on the bottom. Basically the Hollywood Hills here. And, you know, this is thought to be a pretty developed area, but what we've done here is we've colored in all the areas that are natural open space still. And it turns out we've got a lot of really good habitat here left in this area. But again, what you're seeing is that it's fragmented. It's broken up into all these different pieces. And unlike with the Liberty Canyon crossing, it's not a freeway that's breaking up this habitat. It's our own homes and fences and roads and things that are creating the same issues, just like we're seeing with those mountain lions. And so we want to connect all this habitat. And what Claw is really envisioning is a connected network of habitat throughout the Santa Monica Mountains and beyond. And the ways we can accomplish that first are protecting the land that's there. And so that's where some of our conservation works comes in, and make sure that we are protecting the land and not losing it to development, which continues to happen. But because that development is going to continue to happen, we've got to look at ways that we've got to figure out how we can build smarter and build in ways that are going to consider our wildlife and habitat. And that's what this wildlife ordinance really is doing. So this ordinance goes all the way back to a motion that started in 2014. So it's been around for a while. You can see Claw's name on here. We were one of the original petitioners on this. So we've been around through the whole thing. And it's actually a really exciting time because I think it was last week, the planning department just released their draft ordinance of what this is going to look like. And so unfortunately, no one from planning could join us today. So I'll just show you this slide, which I think is a pretty good summary of what this ordinance is going to do. It's going to look at a number of factors when it comes to development and regulate them in the context of wildlife and habitat. So looking at things like buffers from natural resources. So for instance, if there's a creek, you've got to build your house a certain distance from that creek. Fencing requirements so that animals don't get caught on fences and are also able to move through certain areas. Landscaping considerations, encouraging native landscapes, native plants and discouraging invasive ones. Looking at lighting, windows to make for more bird-proof windows because window strikes are such a common cause of bird mortality, and other things as well. This ordinance would start in this pilot area. So you can see the 405 on the west, the 101 kind of Cahuenga Pass there on the east, Valley to the north, and Hollywood to the south. This is the starting pilot area. And we hope that eventually, or the plan is ultimately that this would cover kind of the whole rim of the valley area. So once this is put in place, we'll move on to the next area. And this is just another version of that map showing you there's a lot of natural resources in this area. You can see in blue here is just all the water resources, for instance. So where are we now with this ordinance? Like I said, the draft ordinance has come out and it's now timed for comments and stuff. We so far are pretty happy, but we're still kind of looking into it. But there's a more urgent issue, which is funding this whole thing. You know, it's budget time in the city. And for the past 2 years, the mayor's draft ordinance has left this out. It has not funded the wildlife pilot study. Last year, Claude and a number of other groups and residents were able to successfully advocate to continue funding for this program last year. This year is a little complicated, but basically we need 4 positions funded in order for this to work because there's different skill sets needed. There's kind of 2 people needed to get this ordinance finished, and then another 2 people needed to really implement it and make it happen. It appears right now that we have 2 of those positions funded. On Friday, the budget committee of the city council approved the 2 other positions, but did not fund them. I don't really know what that means, but the point is that they're still not funded. And so if you feel compelled to do so, we hope that you will call in Thursday, which is going to be the full city council hearing on the budget at 9 a.m. and urge them to fund all 4 positions of these for the wildlife ordinance. We really want to fund this, and we want to fund it robustly so that it can really work. And then real quickly, there's another issue right now that kind of ties in all this, and it concerns, if any of you are familiar with the Mulholland Design Review Board. Basically, there's a specific plan along Mulholland Drive. You can kind of see in gray here is the area that it basically is. And so within a certain distance from Mulholland, for a very long time, any developments there have had to go through a public process and go in front of the Mulholland Design Review Board, which is kind of an advisory board for these developments. They look at a number of considerations, including some environmental considerations. And what you see highlighted in red on this map are different areas where the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy has been able to protect land through an easement or some other way as a result of this process, as a result of the Mulholland Design Review Board. So you can see it's been a really important thing, because until the wildlife ordinance is put in place, we don't have any other wildlife protections really in this area. Well, about a month ago, our head of planning in the LA City Planning, Vince Bertoni, put a memo out that really undermined this protection that we've got. And basically what it did is it made a lot of land that would normally be go under this review process no longer subject to it. And this is really bad news. And it's a really bad time to be doing this, especially because we don't have the wildlife ordinance in place yet. And so without that, we're really losing a lot of environmental oversight in this really critical area. And so if you are in the Hillside area, if you've got a Hillside council member, we do encourage you to contact your council member and ask them that they basically rescind this memo that the planning director Bertoni has put out, and ask them to continue full public process through the Mulholland Design Review Board. I know that's a little like blah, 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 but my email is in the chat. And if you want to reach out to me about any of this stuff, please feel free to email me. You can also go to our website and sign up for our email list for more to stay updated on this. And if you're interested in reading the full draft ordinance of the wildlife corridor ordinance, it's only like 35 pages. There's the URL right there that you can go to and read that. So that was a lot very quickly. I will take questions, I guess.
Great, thank you. Can you stop sharing your screen, Andrew? Thank you. Actually, wait, there we go, yeah. So yeah, we have about 10 minutes for questions, comments, suggestions. I see that Kira has raised her hand, so go for it, Kira.
I thank you so much for being here, Andrew. Could you say the city council file again? And then can you clarify, how does that council file, was that just kind of like a predecessor to the draft ordinance, or how are they connected? Thanks.
Yeah, that was the motion that put in place the the wildlife pilot study that led to this ordinance. So I don't think in calling in you would really need to reference it, but I will give it to you anyway. It's so you can check it out. It is 140518.
Okay, so the more important thing at this point is really the draft ordinance for the pilot program and getting support to get that funded.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, and the meeting on Thursday, that's a budget meeting, or?
I believe it's a full city council meeting about the budget.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see, oh wait, I do. Pat, go for it. Pat, are you there?
Hi there. Thank you for a great presentation. I would encourage everyone to write in. You can make public comment very easily on the city clerk's website. Just Google public comment for city clerk. Weigh in on this and contact your council people about the Mulholland corridor. This is just a really absurd decision. We cannot figure out where it's coming from. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I should have asked, before you speak, if you could briefly introduce yourself so we can all get to know each other, that would be great. Thank you. Raduca, go ahead.
Hi. I understand that there was a grant, Annenberg grant, given 25 million for crossing. Are you not connected with them, or can you be connected and sort of have some partnership with them?
We definitely support that project. That's the Liberty Canyon crossing. And we, have been involved in certain steps in that, but that's really being led by national.
A little bit in the Liberty crossing, but not that much.
Sorry?
Sorry, I don't know who's talking. Who was that? Okay, going. Okay, did you want to say?
The National Wildlife Federation is the group that's really spearheading that whole project. That's, if you're interested in that, it's under their program called Save LA Cougars also, you can look at.
Gwen, go for it. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did. Hi, Andrew. We talked about a year ago on the phone. I'm down south in Northwest San Pedro. Yeah, and we have some interest in these corridors. But of course, we're kind of the ugly stepchildren way down south. I'm hoping that, oh, it's a little hot. Okay, I'll lower my voice. I'm hoping that we can participate in some way, both with supporting this, because our council people are not directly involved in any way, but because of the interest, we want to keep it on the radar and also participate in the funding and get this to a point where our marine migratory animals and coastal animals can also benefit from this. We have marshlands and that kind of thing that are very sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that'd be great.
well, my question being, how can we participate in an active way? Just go to our council people and put the pressure on them?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about within kind of the San Pedro area?
Yeah, in regards to the Mulholland project and in regards to this budget.
Yeah,
item.
I mean, definitely call in. I don't think that the ordinance isn't really going to reach down there, I don't think, but that doesn't mean that you're not a resident with an opinion. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, but well, with Claw, I hope that you consider exploring this area as well and bringing your thoughts.
And if you have anything in particular, please reach out to us.
Yeah. Mosto Jerry actually lives down here, so and there's quite a few conservancies and things like that would probably want to collaborate in some way.
Great.
Joanne, go ahead.
I'm Joanne D'Antonio. I'm chair of the NCSA Trees Committee, and I also represent the Greater Valley Glen Neighborhood Council. However, I am previous to living here, I lived 25 years in Hollywood Land, and P22 was on our street all the time. So, I have my little stuffed animal, and I support all you do. But my question to you is, what happens beyond the pilot program? In other words, we would like to see more of the oak walnut woodlands that you mentioned preserved. And we have a hard time with tree preservation on those lands. And we're wondering if you have any intention, once your pilot is complete, that you have interest in going beyond corridors to trying to preserve what's left of the oak walnut woodlands? Or is that just something beyond what you can undertake?
No, I mean, as an organization, we are involved in conservation and in working to get easements or acquire land as well. And we were very involved in the protected tree ordinance, the recent addition of Toyon and elderberry. But this wildlife ordinance does include a tree section, not just for our protected trees, but also for, like, they call it significant trees, which I think is just any tree really of a certain size. So it does look into trying to balance out planting.
Yeah,
I don't know the specifics.
Yeah, it's great. It's more robust than usual coming out of city council.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, Melanie. And then we'll move on after Melanie goes.
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you, Andrew. That was great. I would love any more information you have on the specifics of Bertoni's move. And I mean, what strikes me is that there may be projects pending that they're trying to delay this until those things are approved and can get around the ordinance, and that is worrisome. And I'm wondering if anybody is flagging what projects in the study area, in the area are in the pipeline.
Yes, and there's I believe there's going to be a lawsuit coming. It's not going to be from us, but another group.
Right.
This memo is technically immediate. No one has to wait for anything. As soon as the memo came out, that's what changed. They're saying that that's the way it can happen, but there are some kind of legal things saying not really. Basically, the specifics of what it says is, the gist of it is that if you can't see the land from Mulholland, that it no longer needs to go through the design review board. This is silly for a lot of reasons. I mean, one of which is that if you build on the land, it could become visible, or the lighting could become visible. And also because there are a number of factors within this process that have nothing to do with just, there's an aesthetic portion of it, but there's also this environmental portion of it that doesn't have anything to do with whether you can see it from a certain road or not.
Of course.
And so the answer is yes. All of the local groups are very aware of this and very concerned by it, and we will be keeping an eye on it, and definitely keeping, if you want to sign up for our email list or whatever, we'll be updating.
That'd be great. My big thing here locally was I was really looking forward to this coming into effect, largely because of the lighting portion.
Mm-hmm.
There are facilities here at the edge of the study area that have really, really bright lights that are not focused down, that are focused throughout the community. And I was looking forward to that coming into effect so that I could start knocking on some doors. But in advance of that, I was told that federal facilities would be exempt. Do you know if that's the case? Because one of those with the bad lighting practices is the post office.
Oh, I have not heard that. It's possible, but I'm not familiar with that.
I would, if you could look into that for me, I would love to know. But okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I did say that Melanie would be the last person, but Wendy Sue is raising her hand. So Wendy, I'm being a bad role model, and I'm gonna let you go for it, and I hope you can be short and sweet.
Thank you. I just want to say that, the thing that is so disturbing about what the director of planning did is that he took a unilateral action and he overturned a 30-year practice for a specific plan that was adopted through a city council procedure. And so when you have a city council approved specific plan, the only way to really revise it is through a legislative process with hearings, with community input, and with the city council taking a new action. And that did not happen. And so this is disturbing for more reasons than just that the design review board no longer gets to look at more than half the projects. As a matter of fact, the first two projects that have bypassed procedure, one of them, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, has decided has important resource protection because there's a stream, and they have already asked the city to bring it back for design review. We're not hopeful. So this is extremely disturbing that the director of planning has literally just taken a unilateral action to undo a legislative procedure. We should all be very worried.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Andrew, so much for sharing everything. And we'll be in touch. And if you, sounds like it's Thursday at 9 o'clock, I think you said.
Right, correct.
If people can chime in, I really do think that's a powerful way to make a difference. I highly recommend it. Sorry. Okay. So we are going to move on to our next item of business, which is about how we take positions. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott, and I'm going to try to fix a link that apparently isn't working. Oh,
Okay,
I know.
everyone.
I get what you're saying, Lorraine. Sorry?
Are you still speaking, Lisa?
I am not.
Okay. So hi everyone. So we had a discussion, a couple meetings ago about the direction that the steering board has been talking about taking the organization, with the desire to enfranchise this group of people here tonight, particularly those that are designated by their member neighborhood councils to represent the neighborhood councils at NCSA. So so we want to do a couple things tonight. We want to get some feedback from you because you were going to go chat with your colleagues and your neighborhood councils, and we want to hear from you about your thoughts and your colleagues' thoughts about this directional change. We have some draft changes to certain sections of our bylaws that reflect this change. So we'll share with you and kind of go over the highlights. And then if all that goes well, we're gonna kind of dive into this group being a legislative body. We're gonna discuss a really important transportation project in Eagle Rock, the bus rapid transit project that is getting a lot of attention and has a lot of different opinions. So that's kind of a highlight of what we're doing tonight. So, and I just as a reminder, what we talked about a couple of meetings ago was basically that this body would make the decisions when it comes to policy, when we're taking stands on things that city council is weighing. For example, the wildlife corridor. Our vision as a steering board would be that this general membership is the one that discusses it with input from the broader community and votes on whether we should support or not support, or support with certain conditions, a variety of policy issues. And we talked a little bit a couple meetings ago about what that would look like, whether each neighborhood council should have equal voting power, or whether each NCSA rep from a neighborhood council should have equal voting power. We heard a variety of different viewpoints on that. And so let's open it up for discussion and hear from any of the folks that are engaged, whether you're an official rep or not, about whether you've had any conversations about these changes. And then after that, we can go through some of the specific language. So if you have commentary, raise your hand.
And Scott, this is Lorraine. Before we jump into discussion, if you are a designated rep from your neighborhood council, if we have you on file as the designated rep from your neighborhood council, you should have a VM in front of your name indicating that you're eligible to vote. And if you are not the designated rep from your neighborhood council, then you have NV next to your name, meaning that you're very, very welcome. We're excited to have you here and we want your input, but you're not a voting member for taking positions. So please let me know if you think I have you labeled incorrectly.
Okay, so raise your hand if you want to be recognized for discussion on these changes. Okay, so I see Karen.
Yes. Hi, I'm from Atwater Village Neighborhood Council, and I did in our April meeting, I told everyone what we were discussing, and there were no objections to it. I can't say that there was a major discussion about it, and I tried to bring it up again our last meeting, but it was almost 11 o'clock, so we skipped all the Alliance reports. So I think we're okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Karen. That's really
okay.
Gwendolyn.
Our neighborhood council has a standing issue with any voting of items that have not gone through the entire board. So things that, I may have to abstain for certain items that are going before the city council as the NCSA, and then the Northwest is represented. We would need a little advance time so I can take it before my committee and then get an official vote for certain key items. So hopefully that can be accommodated in some way whenever possible.
Got it. Yeah, that's really useful, Gwendolyn. And of course, as we're seeing it, each rep designated by the primary rep designated by the neighborhood council would have the right to vote, but of course would not have to if he or she didn't choose to do so. So we want to be respectful of, reps' desires and neighborhood councils. Other thoughts? Anybody want to be recognized? Well, let me bring up the some of the language we've been working with, which may kind of jog some more discussion. So I'll share my screen. Okay. All right, can everyone see that? Okay, so this is a copy of the NCSA bylaws, existing bylaws, which Ernie and I and former board member Jose worked on a bunch. So I just want to start out by saying this is very much a work in progress. So we've been working on, we worked on 4 of the articles of these bylaws, which we condensed to 3 articles. But there's much more work to be done kind of after we get some buy-in and consensus on this. But we talked about, how do neighborhood councils become members of the NCSA? How are they represented? And then what does it look like in terms of like the governing body that actually makes the decisions on policy? How is that formed? how is it constituted, and how does it work to come to a position on bus rapid transit or wildlife corridors or whatever the issue might be. So we were fairly liberal in kind of streamlining these bylaws and moving towards, something a little bit, different. One of the things that we wanted to do in terms of the membership, getting neighborhood councils engaged in the process, was kind of lower the barrier to entry just a bit. And so, the prior process was a neighborhood council would take a vote. I believe I'm saying this accurately. A neighborhood council would take a vote to join the NCSA, and appointing somebody as a designee or a representative of the neighborhood council was a kind of a separate vote. So we thought that was maybe a little bit unnecessary. And so what we did here was say that the vote to appoint a designee or a rep was actually how the neighborhood council joins the NCSA. So all 99 neighborhood councils can join and engage with us, and all you have to do in order to engage is designate a rep. So that's kind of the change that we made with Article 3 around membership. And then we wanted to respond to kind of this discussion we had a couple of meetings ago about voting power. And what we arrived at was this. We wanted to respect the fact that currently some of our member neighborhood councils have multiple reps, but we also wanted to kind of hear what, the message that we were hearing from some folks around, well, is it fair if, and one neighborhood council has 3 reps and another has 1 rep, and all of a sudden the voting power of that particular council is kind of outweighing other neighborhood councils. So what we arrived at in this draft was designating 1 voting representative to vote at these meetings and 2 alternative representatives, with the idea that if that primary representative isn't able to make a meeting, that one of those alternate representatives could be the voting member for that night. So that's where we went with that. And then we wanted to make it clear that, this is a big shift, right? So what we're saying is that, moving forward, this body that's talking right now tonight would have its own voice. It would be accountable in many ways to neighborhood councils, right? Because the members are appointed by the neighborhood councils. But when it comes to what the policy of the NCSA would be, it's our intention that the reps wouldn't be beholden to the neighborhood councils prior to voting. Although we think that there's a lot of ways to keep them accountable, and that's an engagement tool actually, and not a bad thing, because if you take a position that's sort of against the majority of your neighborhood council, maybe they're not going to be so happy, and maybe they want to reappoint you in the next term, or all kinds of conversations could be had. So we think there's other ways of kind of creating those conversations and creating those methods of accountability. But we did want to kind of move towards a little bit more independence for NCSA. That being said, we also want to make it clear that in no way restricts the neighborhood councils from having their own positions or contrary positions from the NCSA on these variety of issues. So that's what you'll see in Article 4, letter B. And then we combined Articles 5 and 6 into an article about how the governing body is composed and how it makes policy decisions. So our draft suggestion for the composition of the governing body is everyone who was appointed by a rep that was appointed by their neighborhood council board as the primary voting member would have a vote. Committee chairs would have a vote, who are not all reps from the neighborhood councils, and steering board members. would all have equal voting power. And that body made up of those three groups would be the one through a democratic process that would decide on the policy positions. So a few simple ideas here, right? Nothing earth-shattering, but we thought it was important to start getting some actual language on this. And again, lots more work to do, including, you know, how we update rules around the steering board, around committees. We also, I think, want to look at, you know, what is the process once this general meeting, this governing body makes a decision? What's the process for engaging the neighborhood councils themselves after that decision? Because I think that's what makes, one of the things that makes this organization so special is, you know, we can amplify our voice with the voices of all of those wonderful neighborhood councils that we're engaged with. So a lot of different pieces that I think we want to move to next, but want to get your thoughts about the language that we have so far. So I will recognize hands. I'll stop sharing and recognize hands. Anyone? Yes, Glenn.
Yes, thank you. So as I recall the list of representatives, there's many neighborhood councils that have more than one designated, and I think that was encouraged in the beginning in case one couldn't make it. But I haven't seen communication asking the neighborhood councils to go back and designate who the primary person is. Is that going to happen before this becomes effective?
Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn. That was the idea. So again, there were some differences of opinion on this because there's competing kind of theories of democracy, right? But definitely the idea, Glenn, was that the new election cycle that is wrapping up now gives us an opportunity, if we go down this road of having every neighborhood council have equal voting power, this election cycle gives us an opportunity to kind of restart. So this is a work in progress, but that was the idea, Glenn, that we would reach out and say, okay, now you're going to have to let us know who your primary voting representative is.
And will that be indicated somehow on the webpage? I know that's more work, but that way there's no, you know, dispute, I guess you'd say, if someone wanted, I mean, just like for Dunn and the Empower LA webpage and the training, there's a place to point to as definitive and say, okay, yeah, you're the rep, or ranking them 1, 2, 3. You know, if number one's not present, then number 2 gets to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that kind of transparency and making sure everybody's on the same page is really important. So yes, that's something that I think we would strive to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Karen.
Yes, hi. So there is a rule that there should be only one representative from each neighborhood council. I didn't realize that.
We didn't have that. Good question, Karen. We didn't have that rule previously. We have current, you know, in the past, historically, and up till now, we have as many as, I believe, 3 reps from any one neighborhood council. But the idea moving forward would be that, yes, we could have 3 reps, but only one of them would be the primary voting representative.
Okay, I mean, that seems to make sense, but I just worry as I'm hearing this discussion that we're becoming the government, where we're making things harder. You know, it seems to me that if we come up with the good rules for the Sustainability Alliance, then the neighborhood council, as you mentioned, has the right to say that's a great idea or we don't like it. And so I would love to keep it less bureaucratic. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we hear you. Thank you, Karen. I mean, I think we want this to continue to be a space that everyone feels comfortable engaging with. And, so I want to say that off the bat. So, whether you're a voting member or not, you'll have time to give your opinion on an issue. We'll have public comment time for non-voting folks. And I also want to say that, the policymaking process of these meetings is only intended to be a portion of what we do. So, I think that we also want to continue to do the fabulous programming that happens every month. So that, and that's another way for folks to engage that, may not be as interested in kind of the mucky muck of sausage making and legislation and amendments and all of that. So, and of course, we would continue to do special events and all kinds of other activities. So we do want to continue to kind of offer that menu of engagement options, knowing that, this legislative sort of policy making piece is not going to be for everyone.
Good.
Other thoughts? Any hands, questions, concerns? Joanne? Oh, you're on mute.
My question is about wording. When you take a position, sometimes things can be rather nuanced in terms of, we don't just blanketly support something. A lot of times we have caveats. So is it possible that any motion that we vote on, that we see the wording before we vote, or, if there's friendly amendments or whatever? But it seems to me that this would be a place would be difficult to accept something loosely worded, because, I'm just looking at that BRT possibility today, and there are caveats that could come up, and we would want to not vote for something or against something without knowing what those would be exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point, Joanne. So I think that anytime you're essentially creating a legislative process, language is very important. And so, part of what is an assistance in this area is that, the committees are really important. So, typically any legislative body, a lot of this work happens at the committee level, right? And so the committee will come up with a recommended motion. So we'll have very specific language from the committee often that voting members should be able to see prior to the meeting, that will be shared during the meeting on an agenda or document attached to the agenda. And then, I was the chair of a neighborhood council for 6.5 years. So, getting the language right on amendments and making sure it's specific is something near and dear to my heart, because people, just as you say, people have to know what they're voting on. So this is going to be a work in progress, but I think you're absolutely right that proper facilitation of the meeting is really, really important, right? Whoever is chairing the meeting, facilitating the meeting has to be, do a really good job ensuring that the language that's being offered via any amendments is specific. We can use, certainly in the digital space like this, we can use tools like sharing screens, so that can be very transparent, so people can see exactly how the language is being changed. But proper facilitation is important. But I agree with you 100%. People have to know what they're voting on, and that's going to be a priority of this year. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you for the feedback. It feels like we're moving in the right direction, and we're going to continue to have this conversation over the next few months as we work on other portions of the bylaws. The next step is to actually kind of put this into action. So we're going to hear about this BRT project, and then I will facilitate a process where we'll consider a motion, any amendments, and hopefully vote. So I think Michael Schneider is going to be, or Michael McDonald is going to be putting to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. So thank you, Scott. So our transportation committee discussed this issue quite recently. Michael McDonald, who's with Eagle Rock Forward, shared some slides and shared a presentation with us, which was really helpful. The transportation committee did recommend that we support this. And just to be clear, to Joanne's point, in this case, support looks like signing a letter that Eagle Rock Forward has and having our logo on their website. And if I'm getting anything wrong, Michael can correct me. But
you're spot on. Yep.
I'm going to hand this. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand this over to Michael of Eagle Rock Forward, and he's going to share his presentation. And then we'll hand this back over to Scott for a discussion of supporting this.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Scott. I was not realizing I was going to be seeing so many familiar faces on this call. So hello to everybody who I miss seeing you in person, and hello digitally. It's good to connect with you. So yeah, I live in Eagle Rock, and I'm a part of the Beautiful Boulevard Coalition, which is a grassroots effort to make Metro's bus rapid transit project in Eagle Rock work. And try to solve a lot of the challenges that this project has faced over a number of years. So I'm here as an individual for reasons that I'll get into at the very end of the presentation. This is not affiliated with the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, and it's an important thing to state that right off the bat because of some criteria that the city attorney has given the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council. But I am here to kind of explain this effort, which is aimed at trying to make Metro's project work and ask for NCSA's support in that effort. So the Beautiful Boulevard proposal is a community-driven solution for Metro's extension of the G line, which is effectively, Metro calls it the North Hollywood to Pasadena bus rapid transit line, but it's effectively an extension of the Orange line from the Valley, from North Hollywood through Burbank, Glendale, Eagle Rock, and into Pasadena. This is a map showing when Measure M was adopted, what the overall transit system would look like. And so as a reminder, in 2016, 71+% of voters approved Measure M, which was a half-cent sales tax to expand our transit system. And this project was specifically written into the ballot language as one of those projects. It's actually the first of 3 bus rapid transit projects that Metro is undertaking. I assume most people are familiar with bus rapid transit, but in case you are not, it is colloquially called light rail on wheels. It is a method of expanding transit systems efficiently and in a cost-effective manner that has become popularized, especially in Central America and South America. But it's not unfamiliar to the US. These are all images of different bus rapid transit lines across the US. And this one right here is in San Bernardino, just 45 minutes away or so. It's also in San Francisco, Provo, Utah, Oakland, all over. And in some ways, the Orange Line is a form of bus rapid transit, although in the many years since that line was implemented, there are more and more efforts to make bus rapid transit work in a really great way to make sure that transit systems are efficient and work well as an alternative to driving. So bus rapid transit, very simply, is dedicated bus lanes. So buses do not get caught in traffic. They don't get held up at red lights. They get signal prioritization, so they move quickly and on schedule. pre-boarding platforms. So similar to any light rail line that you might be familiar with, or train line where you pay up front and then you get on the platform and everybody boards all at once. There's not a queue to get in the bus. And all-door boarding. This is an image in Oakland of a bus, able to board from all doors on the bus. So this is the line as Metro has proposed it. As I mentioned, connecting North Hollywood, red line, and orange line, I'm still using the old terms, Burbank, Burbank Metrolink. There's a transfer point for the Burbank station of the Metrolink through Glendale, and then Eagle Rock to Pasadena, connecting with the Gold Line, as well as Pasadena City College. This project has been going on since 2016. In 2019, it saw kind of a lot of controversy around it because what Metro did outreach at a time when there was no representative for Eagle Rock because our former council member was under FBI investigation. And without that leadership, I think the conversation really devolved, and rightly or wrongly, people had concerns about what it might mean for Eagle Rock. We unfortunately saw that those options in September, when Metro released its draft EIR, were not great. One of the options would have eliminated bike lanes on on Colorado Boulevard. Another would have eliminated medians and 40 to 50% of on-street parking. And a third option would have bypassed Eagle Rock entirely by running the line on the 134. A lot of us here in Eagle Rock who support transit, who want to take action on climate change, were really disappointed with these. And when we realized that Metro was struggling to find a solution, we banded together and came up with our own solution and decided to try and hand it on a silver platter to Metro for them to implement. The basic strategy that was something that us being local to Eagle Rock, realizing that we handed to Metro, that Metro had not considered, was to not think about Colorado Boulevard as a one-size-fits-all that requires one solution across all of it, but recognizing that Colorado Boulevard and Eagle Rock has different zones. There are zones that are closer to freeways that have higher traffic volumes. There's a very large mall, Eagle Rock Plaza. And then there's a kind of downtown of Eagle Rock, which was much more walkable and has a lot of small local businesses that we are very proud of and we want to support, that are in some older buildings that are really beautiful and unique. I'm actually an architect by day. So we realized these three zones across Colorado were something that could allow us to be more strategic than Metro was in making sure that we weren't creating traffic impacts, but we're making a really safer street, a more transit-friendly street, and a more walkable street. So our solution was context sensitive. In the most western zone, which sees the highest amount of traffic and has freeway access for the 2 and 134 freeway, our proposal maintains all traffic lanes. We actually have space to add new landscape medians adjacent to dedicated bus lanes, and we would maintain all curbside parking as well as bike lanes in that area. Zone 2 is the kind of central downtown Eagle Rock. In that area, there are existing medians that are a point of pride in Eagle Rock. And when Metro did their outreach in 2019, it was possible that they might be removing these. And again, last year, that was not well received. So our plan would preserve and upgrade those medians. We would reallocate one travel lane in each direction to provide a safer street, but also to make sure that there's space for transit with dedicated bus lanes. We would maintain all curbside parking, which a lot of our small businesses have really depended on for alfresco dining during the pandemic. And we see that as being something that will continue. And then we want to upgrade the existing bike lanes to being protected bike lanes, family-friendly bike lanes. We actually are calling, it's a little small here, but there is a website which I put a link to on in the chat where we have these really cool before and after sliders. So I don't know if you can see my screen, but what we are proposing in the downtown area is to expand the sidewalk area with European style raised protected bike lanes. This is something that they are about to do near Union Station, but is somewhat innovative for Los Angeles. And it's something we think will make a much more sidewalk friendly, pedestrian friendly space and a great way to provide first mile, last mile connections to transit for this new transit line. So as I mentioned, medians were a real flashpoint issue and continue to be. Our plan would maintain all existing medians and make space for new landscape medians, reducing our impervious surface area on Colorado Boulevard and beautifying the street. There's some images here showing, so I mentioned that raised protected bike lane. This is what one might look like. And then of course, because we are maintaining all curbside parking in our proposal, that space would still be available for outdoor dining like al fresco, as we've seen through the duration of the pandemic. We've been lucky enough to have immense support. We have over 900 individual people who have signed on to our petition. We've received wonderful support from our nonprofit community. Over 30 local Eagle Rock small businesses have signed on in support, which is kind of amazing considering we had to do all of this outreach during the height of the pandemic. Occidental College, which is the largest stakeholder in Eagle Rock, has also signed on in full support, as have 3 branches of student government, which I just love seeing the next generation of leaders on environmentalism. Our county supervisor, Hilda Solis, signed on in support, as did LAUSD board member Jackie Goldberg. All 4 PTAs in the area of the project, Dahlia Heights Elementary, Eagle Rock Elementary, Rockdale Elementary, and Eagle Rock Junior Senior High School, have all signed on in support. I should mention the Eagle Rock Junior Senior is a PTSA, of course, because they are high school students. And as have our local assembly member, Wendy Carrillo, and within the California Assembly, the Transportation Committee Chair, Laura Friedman, has also signed on in support. League of Women Voters, East Area Progressive Dems, the Eagle Rock Association, lots and lots and lots of support. And we would love to have the NCSA sign on in support as well. The good news is that Metro has largely adopted the Beautiful Boulevard proposal. There are some fine tuning that we hope to continue to be able to do with them in the next number of months. They are showing protected bike lanes, but not the kind of European style bike lanes that we would like to see, as one example. But we are really excited that Metro has heard our community and incorporated much of what we were advocating for. This is in large part, I believe, both to a good Metro project team, but also with the generous support of our county supervisor and a local representative on the Metro board, Supervisor Solis. So in terms of next steps, there is a meeting on Wednesday that we are trying to get people to come out to. It's a Metro Planning Committee meeting where Metro is on their agenda is to determine whether or not to approve an alignment of this project, which of course, is much larger than just Eagle Rock, but Eagle Rock has been the most challenging element of it. And on Wednesday, they will decide whether or not at the committee level to support having the project on Colorado Boulevard rather than the 134 freeway. Our council member, Kevin DeLeon, unfortunately, has not signed on in support as of yet and released a letter earlier this week saying that he wanted more meetings. We were disappointed by that statement, but we also understand the desire for more meetings. So through the summer, we expect there to be more meetings, and we hope that by showing a large amount of support, we eventually will finally get him to join on in support, as many other electeds have already done. So yeah, as I mentioned, we would love to have NCSA sign on in support. And what that would consist of would be sending a letter to Metro. There's a template that I believe I provided to Lisa, but I can't remember. If not, I can send you a sample letter that would be up for obviously any adjustments you want to see. And we also would love to list you as a supporter on our website with our large amount of coalition members. I wanted to open to questions, but I hinted at this, so I wanted to get it right off the bat. So the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, unfortunately, has been told by the city attorney that they are not allowed to weigh in on this project. I don't agree with that position. I think it doesn't make sense. I don't think it's consistent with the ability that other neighborhood councils have to weigh in on county level and metro positions. But I don't represent the city attorney, so I'm not here in that regard to defend that. I will say that because of that, neighborhood council members who have signed on in an individual basis do not do so as part of the neighborhood council. So all that is to say is that we've been put with this unfortunate complication by the city attorney for ERNC, but I don't believe in any way that affects whether NCSA is able to sign on and support. NCSA, of course, is its own independent 501c3. And while it has affiliations with the city, I specifically approached this not through the ERNC to make sure that Metro board members, that ERNC board members were not would not be in violation of the city attorney's decision-making on what they can do as a body. I have a bunch of other FAQs here, but I just wanted to, I kind of went through that relatively quick and I wanted to open to questions. I also didn't really get a chance to read through the chat, so I'm going to look at that right now. No, we did not utilize any NC funds. We did this completely independently. We actually did without any funds whatsoever. It was a really inspiring effort in a very short period of time, basically the month of November and December. At the height of the pandemic, we banded together and put together a website and put together a plan and did outreach to develop that plan. Was there a question about, so I have, one of the things that comes up a lot of the time is people associate Metro with upzoning or displacement or gentrification. Besides the fact that I think that there's a different context here in Eagle Rock, which is a relatively affluent neighborhood that has jobs and access to things. Transit here is about allowing people who work in Eagle Rock to get to and from Eagle Rock, but also Colorado Boulevard, where this project is along, is subject to a specific plan within the city of Los Angeles. That specific plan prohibits housing development along the majority of the corridor and also has pretty strong prohibitions to try and stop destruction of architecturally significant buildings, many of which are the ones that our small businesses depend on. Is the BRT slower or faster than the 501? The 501, I believe, is the express line that runs from North Hollywood directly to Pasadena. So that doesn't provide service to Eagle Rock. This is intended to connect people within the in-between area. So it's kind of a different thing. The idea is not that people are riding only from North Hollywood to Pasadena, but people might be riding from Glendale to Eagle Rock or Eagle Rock to Burbank Metrolink to get to Burbank Airport. So it's a different service. My memory is that I think Metro studied and service along this corridor. I think end to end is 2 hours, and through this line would be 1 hour and 6 minutes. Don't quote me exactly on those times, but that's my memory of what the improvement is that it would provide to neighboring cities in Northeast LA and Glendale, Burbank.
Okay, I think I should hand it over to Scott in case you want to move forward on a motion, and then we can discuss it further. Scott, you're muted.
My apologies. Yes, I think we should do that. Michael, would you mind taking down your share screen?
Sure. Sorry, yeah, okay.
No worries. Okay, so so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make a motion that we support the beautiful boulevard, and then I'll need a second for that to be on the floor, and then we will go to our non-voting folks if they want to give public comments of limited to 1 minute per person.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I'm getting a second from Karen from Atwater. fantastic. So motion is on the floor. Do folks feel like they need to ask questions, or should we go right to public comments? Okay, let's have a brief question period, and then we'll go to comment from our non-voting members. So if you have a question for Michael, raise your hand now. Okay. All right, Joanne.
Okay, I have 3 questions. They can be answered short. Is this creating a transit-oriented community then? And do you have support of the homeowners in the area? That's one question. Second question is, have the existing trees been calculated? If any have to be removed, because Metro has a habit of telling us at the end rather than when they're planning. And the third one is, in your pictures, you had a lot of ornamental trees in small wells, and is it possible to do larger trees and native trees like oak trees and so forth, which is better for the biodiversity? So those
Great
are my
questions. So to answer your TOC, I put this in the chat, but there is no difference between the existing 780 rapid line and this BRT line with regard to zoning.
So in other words, the other one runs already every 20 minutes?
Yeah, there already is a line that meets the same criteria. If
Okay.
you want to get into really technical stuff, if the station moves half a block, that moves the radius. But in general, there's no impact. I will say, though, that my understanding is that TOC is limited by the Colorado Boulevard specific plan because it relates to housing. And if no housing is allowed, it's not triggered. That's something that again, if you want to get into technical things, I think that's a determination the planning department is going to have. But in general, I would say that there's no impact because it's the same as what's already there under zoning. The second question was about trees, I believe. So one of our community members who you may know, Chloe Ziegler, who is a strong proponent for native trees, put together our package on the native, I mean, we're calling for all native plants, but the native plant package that we proposed to Metro, this, we're still in the point where Metro is talking about alignment, so they're not really getting into that detail, but that's a detail that we will continue to follow up with them. We, of course, want to make sure that we are doing native trees as much as possible. We believe in them. We also want to make sure that we're providing quality trees that provide shade and improve the atmosphere of the street. I understand that, sometimes those run in conflict, but we have a great local team of people who have landscape expertise advocating, and we're going to continue to put all of our weight behind trying to make the best possible solution for our trees. Our plan calls for maintaining the existing medians, so we should be able to maintain the existing trees, but we understand also that, construction complicates things. The existing trees that are in the medians are magnolias that have not been well cared for, unfortunately. They're also, of course, exotic species. They're not native. We would like to keep them because they have a lot of age to them, and that's a real important thing, of course. But we also recognize that they're not native, and so they may get strained. We want to try and preserve them as possible.
Yeah, Pasadena has actually been very successful with their southern magnolias. So you may be just, sometimes it's just a matter of water.
Yeah.
And one thing, I just want to give you a little pointer, maybe you've thought of it already, but we put median trees in, and LA San put in, their landscaper put in irrigation with a solar panel. And it's been great, and it's just been wonderful. So your street trees are going to be able to stay your despite the bike lanes, because you don't necessarily have to take out the street trees even if you're widening the sidewalk.
We don't want to. We absolutely want to. Those trees especially have a lot of age to them and they provide great shade cover. So we absolutely want those to stay. We're expanding the sidewalk, so we're asking to add a second layer of trees to add many more trees to the street.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. John and Michael and Michelle Hales.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick couple questions and a little basis. We were involved with a lot with Metro in the San Fernando Valley, and what we came out of the various meetings was they were, I guess, very short on history and planning. And when the questions from the local community came up, they were not able to answer them directly. Our son used to live in Eagle Rock, and just a little while ago he left. One of the questions that we found on Devonshire is that there were homes that were going to be affected. The width of the needed bus lanes was going to affect those within, I don't know if it was 100 feet of the edge. Will there be any homes that are affected by this broadening of that street?
And also, I just want to say that John Lee is still opposed to the Metro in the Valley. Council member.
Yeah, your experience kind of mirrors ours. Metro did not have great on the ground experience, and luckily we have a great community here in Eagle Rock that was able to band together and use our own kind of like know-how to help Metro along. So there's no widening of the street that's being proposed and no homes that would be affected by the project in that way. Of course, this is a bus project, not a rail project. So it's really about reallocating existing roadway to enable faster transit along it. I think that you know, I'm a homeowner in Eagle Rock. A lot of homeowners support this. We see this as being a new way for us to get around, even if we're not using it on a daily basis, which some of us would like to, but even if it's not people using it not on a daily basis, it provides a great way for us to get to and from Burbank Airport without having to drive our cars, park in a garage and pay large fees for that.
Colorado Boulevard is a very busy street all the time. I mean, it's really, there's a lot of traffic there. I mean, because our son lived there, so we visited him a lot. So it's really, it's going to be a lot of congestion. It's going to be a lot of limitations.
On the side streets.
On the side streets.
Yeah, so that's a great, I had a slide that I didn't bring up, but a big part, one of the small differences between what we're proposing and what Metro has on the table so far is that we were proposing traffic calming on adjacent residential streets, things like speed humps, mini roundabouts, you know, stop signs, occasionally diverters, things to make sure that there is no spillover or cut through traffic on adjacent streets. That's very important to us. That's very important that this project works for everyone. And that absolutely is something that we will continue to advocate for and try and make sure that Metro and the city work well together so that this doesn't create a nuisance to nearby residents. The other thing you mentioned about traffic, and I'll just point out that you know, there is traffic on Colorado. It's not like West Side traffic. There's a relatively close one-to-one on Virgil Ave in kind of Western, I call it Western Silver Lake. I hope I'm not offending people. It's called Virgil Village, I believe. In 2014, a street with almost the exact same traffic counts saw a reduction in travel lanes at Virgil and Melrose. It ended up being quite a big success. There's not, you know, a huge traffic congestion there, and businesses have really thrived. Again, our plan is only limiting traffic lanes in the walkable core. The 134 still parallels Colorado, and we want the 134 to be an alternative for people who are trying to bypass Colorado, rather than right now, Colorado acts as an alternative to the 134. So we maintain all travel lanes adjacent to freeway on and off ramps so that people are still able to get in, out, and around Eagle Rock.
Have you got input from Occidental College?
I'm gonna stop you there because I just want to,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
I want to make sure we only have a half an hour left, so I want to make sure we get to everyone's questions. So, and just save any comments to the discussion for the discussion portion after we've gotten through this. So Okay, so Ernie is next with a question for Michael.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Michael, thank you for the presentation. That's pretty impressive to present that design and in that format. My question was, of the businesses that are supporting this proposal, the Grand Boulevard proposal, how many of them are in the section, because you have three zones, how many of them are in the section where you would reduce the street traffic to one lane?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I want to say it's between 12 and 17 out of 37.
I thought so. I recognized some of the businesses, and it seemed to me, based on my memory, that several of them are within that zone. And I just wanted to clarify whether the businesses in that zone were supportive of this proposal, and it seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say a quick anecdote. One of the business owners who owns multiple businesses on Colorado was one of the first people that we were pinging for, feedback when we were putting together this idea. And he was just floored and loved it, and kind of responded in like, wow, maybe we can't get 3rd Street like Santa Monica has, but this is pretty damn close. I think a lot of businesses really want, right now, at least the way I experience most of Colorado is I'll go to one business and then I'll go home. I don't really spend a lot of time there. And we would like for it to be a better destination where people end up spending the whole day and go from one business to another, go for walks with their family. And that's really, the vision that we have for Colorado. I also, sorry, there was a question that the last person asked about Occidental. So Occidental College is in support. The college itself endorsed the beautiful boulevard. Many of their different departments did. And then, as I mentioned, 3 of their student body organizations endorsed.
Okay, next up is Natalie Friedberg. Do you have a question, Natalie?
Hi there. Many of you know me from, I was the former sustainability director of the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, and I have also participated in this beautiful boulevard project. I live in Eagle Rock. I also happen to be the president of the Silver Lake Chamber of Commerce. And because of the pandemic, I've been working extensively with restaurants in Eagle Rock because our Chamber of Commerce here is not very active. And my experience with talking to the businesses during this process has been that there are a large number of them who see this as a great opportunity. They've seen what's happened on York Boulevard and how that's helped business owners there, and how it's become a destination where people go spend all day Saturday or all evening on a Friday for the art walk. And they're really looking forward to something similar.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, and so we have one more person who's Karen. Do you have a question? And then after that, just want to remind folks that after that, we will go to a public comment period where any non-voting members can have up to a minute. So Karen, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, and this might be stupid, but your diagrams were kind of small on my laptop. But will Colorado Boulevard lose one lane in each direction for bus lanes?
Great question. So as I mentioned, our plan is in 3 zones. Zones 1 and 3 see no reduction in travel lanes to private automobiles. Zone 2, which is the walkable core, yes, 1 lane in each direction would be reallocated from private automobiles to being bus rapid transit lanes. That's an important decision to make to, number 1, make this a kind of walkable destination, but the alternative to that reallocation is elimination of medians and curbside parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Michael, for definitely answering all of the questions. So we're going to move now to a public comment period. I will allow up to a minute, but I encourage 30 seconds or less because we're at about just over 20 minutes left in our meeting, and we still need to go to discussion and then a vote. So any non-voting members, please raise your hand. Yeah, Lisa?
I just want to remind you that we also want to hear from our committees and leave time for announcements and stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to ask folks to do it in 30 seconds. And we'll start with John and Michelle. Public comments.
Thank you. Just quickly, two comments. One, with our experience with Metro, we understand the difficulty it is in dealing with that government type agency. What is your position? Are you working directly with them, doing all the planning and organizing, and then they'll just accept it? Or are you doing this separate in hopes that they'll agree to it?
And the parade.
And then the parade on January 1.
So John, the proposal was community developed, but as Michael mentioned, many aspects of it have already been adopted by Metro into their conceptual plan for this section of the bus rapid transit project. No decision has been made yet, and that's why we're having a discussion tonight about, whether we might join a chorus of a lot of progressive organizations that are saying this is kind of the vision that we want on Eagle Rock, on Colorado Boulevard and Eagle Rock. Okay, any other non-voting members that want to give brief public comment? Okay, so we move to discussion among the governing body. So if you're a voting member tonight and you want to be recognized for commentary, raise your hand, use the raised hand function. I am seeing none. Okay, great. So we're going to have a vote. We'll do a roll call vote managed by Lorraine and Muriel. So how do we want to do this, Lorraine? Do we want to do a
roll call if you'd like? I was expecting to ask for raise of hands for yes, and then a raise of hands for no, but there's a small enough. We have 17 last I checked, folks listed as voting members. So I will go ahead and do a roll call.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So I
So
want to say it's probably 18 with Stephen Meeks.
And I
okay.
added Lisa too. I added Lisa Tarallo.
Oh,
And I see new people, Devin Williams and Murtaza Mowbray. If Muriel, if you could check those people and rename them while I'm doing the roll call. Okay. So I'm going to start with the list of participants, which means I'm starting with the host first, Lisa Hart.
Oh, yes, I'm supportive.
Okay. Thank you. Muriel,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Joanne,
We're supporting that letter. Is that what we're supporting?
supporting signing on to the letter, yes.
Yes.
Don Dwiggins,
Yes.
Gwendolyn Henry,
Yes.
Karen Knapp,
Yes.
Dan Cagle,
Probably not authorized to vote yet.
Yes, you are, because you're a committee chair.
Abstain.
So interesting.
okay. Ann Dorsey,
I'm not authorized to vote, so it would be abstain or just no vote.
we have you listed as, okay. Are you no longer the rep for your neighborhood council?
I am the rep, but my neighborhood council doesn't want me to represent them.
I see. Okay, so you're abstaining. Okay, thank you. Devin Williams.
I'm kind of in the same situation as Gwen, but I would say yes, I'm for it, but I'll still have to go through my neighborhood council.
So it's up to each rep to abide by the rules of their own neighborhood council. We understand that some neighborhood councils do not permit their reps to vote. So Devin, are you going to abstain or vote yes?
I'm gonna abstain.
Thank you. Ernie Hidalgo,
Yes.
Glenn Bailey,
Yes, please note that that would need to be for Northridge East.
thank you. Jesselyn,
Yes.
my list of participants keeps moving, so Laura Gonzalez. Oh, yeah, Laura, you're abstaining, I believe.
Yeah, abstain.
Thank you. Lisa Tarayo.
Yes.
Melanie Winter,
Yes.
Rosalind Helfand,
Yes.
West, there's someone named
Stephen, that's Stephen Meeks.
Stephen Meeks.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone?
Lorraine, I misspoke. I meant to abstain. This is Gwen Henry.
Gwen, okay. Thank you. Did I miss anyone who is listed as a voting member?
I just added Philip.
Philip.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to abstain since I wasn't here for most of the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 13 yes votes.
I got the same.
And 6 abstentions.
Motion carries. Well done, everyone. Thank you so much for being the pioneers of this process. Very exciting night. And thank you, Michael, for being our guinea pig as a presenter. Okay. We'll be drafting a letter to reflect this position of the NCSA. I hand it back to Lisa for committee announcements and the like.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was so helpful. Great conversation. I learned a lot. Okay, yes, I'm going to share our slides for our committees and ask our, wait, am I doing that right? Sorry, just a second, bear with me. Ask our committee chairs or representatives to give us a brief update. I don't think Terry, you're not here, is that correct? Okay, so Terry Saucier was going to give the update for advocacy. If anybody else wants to, that's fine. Otherwise, I will. Terry is one of the volunteers for helping animals rescued when there's a fire. So she is probably working on the Palisades fire with animals right now. So a lot of, was the wildlife corridor issue came through the advocacy committee. So that's a lot of what we've been working on this past week. And we'd love, once again, your contributions. If you can call in Thursday morning, that would be fantastic. Vehicle idling motion passed unanimously the City Council Transportation Committee. So there's a lot more to do, but that's super exciting. And I think 13 neighborhood councils weighed in on that. So thank you, thank you, thank you to each of you, and several of you called in during the meeting. I think you made a really strong positive impression, so thank you. Public comment for the LA River closed Thursday. We signed on a letter, and so did the East Hollywood and Silver Lake neighborhood councils. So they're getting a lot of pushback. There are a lot of organizations signed that letter telling the county to slow down and to revisit their plans. So we'll see what happens. There are some things that the advocacy committee has not come to agreement on yet. One is the expansion of the fire district, which is the motion from Lumenfield's office that's gotten a lot of attention. Having some conversations about the Ellis Act, talking about SB 9 and 10, talking about transit-oriented communities, and talking about public banking. So if you want to join us on any of that stuff, please do. And I'm going to try to mute everybody because somebody's typing is very loud. Dan, you're up.
I was just about to mute myself because I was typing.
Oh, that was you. Oh, shoot. Okay. Then I will not mute you.
Hi, I'm the energy chair, and there's sort of 4 big areas that we're paying attention to and trying to move the needle on. One is, and we're very excited about this, getting our electricity supply clean. LADWP says it's doable. The mayor has told them we want to do it by 2035, and now the city council is weighing in. And so we may be asking people to sign a CIS, to pass a CIS in favor of moving fast there. Another area is Stand LA's oil drilling setback motion, which is now an oil drilling prohibition motion. That's Council File 170447. It passed Plum recently and is now on to, I don't know, Budget and Pointy-Haired Committee. Don't know what the other one is. So that's moving along and it's exciting. Building decarbonization. We need our buildings in Los Angeles to produce fewer carbon emissions, and we're monitoring what the city's thinking about, but it's kind of opaque at the moment. And then finally, there's sort of a catch-all thing we're trying to do. The city, in all its little activities every day, makes little decisions about whether to burn fossil fuel or not. And so we're trying to get them to take into account the real costs to the environment of those decisions in a way that might make a real difference. It's kind of, I think of it as bean counter whispering. Anyway, so that's where we're at. These are very exciting times. It's really hard to keep up.
Thank you, Dan. Muriel, can you talk about this, please?
Yeah, so we held our transportation committee meeting on May 6th, Thursday night. We had talked about what Michael had done a presentation for. So he actually came to our meeting and presented it to us before we came to this membership meeting. And we also talked about support for car sharing. So for EV sharing services like Turo, Get Around, and other car sharing services. And then we are currently looking for a co-chair. So anyone wants to step up.
Thank you. Joanne?
I didn't, yeah, okay. I'm surprised because I didn't do this card this time. I did it last time, so I didn't know what this card was going to say. So the urban forestry, all right, I'll do the card and then I'll do my cheat sheet here because they're different. The urban forestry division budget, we didn't submit anything on behalf of the NCSA, but everyone on the Trees Committee was supportive of CFAC's letter. And actually some of the items look like they're going to happen. And I don't know when we will find out, but I do know that Adele Hush-Khalil put some of our items in there that we wanted, including the environmental planner. The sidewalk repair program final EIR was released and it passed the Board of Public Works. They absolutely ignored all of the comments, and and Board of Public Works just put the rubber stamp on it. It does have to go before the City Council, so there's one more chance to criticize. They really ignored environmental concerns. So it's quite sad, but EIRs tend to do that. Anyway, on a more positive note, the Board of Public Works, well, there's a tree summit this Friday, and it's actually, the subject is going to be water, which is really great because as you may know, when the Save the Drop campaign killed a lot of trees because a lot of people turned off their watering and didn't realize that they still needed to water their trees, even if they took out their yards or lawns. So that's going to be this. It's open to the public. It's Friday at 9:30, and you can just Google Tree Summit, I think, and you'll get it, or send me an email at trees@ncsa.la, and I'll send you the link to register for it. You do have to register to get the Zoom link, but it should be interesting. The other thing the other sort of hopeful moment is that this Wednesday, item 5 of the Board of Public Works hearing is a motion to ask Rachel, the city forest officer, to do a report on how construction could create tree protection zones to protect the trees that are caught in construction zones. And Santa Monica does an amazing job of this, of saving trees that happen to be near construction. And so we are trying to create standards, and building and safety and planning can give out this information, and hopefully there'll be some way of enforcing it. And I canceled the meeting, the Trees Committee meeting for this month because it would have been this Saturday, given Memorial Day weekend, and I didn't want to have an event the day after the tree summit because that's a lot of hours. And so just in respect of people's time, I will likely do it in June, towards the end of the month. And I will notify the Trees Committee. And if anyone wants to be on our mailing list, please do email me and I will include you. I still haven't gotten the recording out for Jamie Hall's last Trees Committee meeting, but it's still on my to-do list and I will be making it available. He spoke on oak, walnut, woodlands, and sequoia in the hillside areas. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joanne. Any announcements? Anything anybody wants to share? I'd like to remind you folks to complete the evaluation. I'll try to send the link one last time. No announcements? I think this is a first. Our next meeting will be should be June 13th. I don't think there are any conflicts. The second Sunday of the month. I'm not sure what we'll be talking about, but a couple of candidates are something on the city budget. Clearly this is, we've been caught short the last couple of years, a little bit surprised and dismayed by some of what's happening. So might be good for us to get a little bit savvier. And you probably know there's a lot of talk about the people's budget and participatory budgeting. So that might be good. Another thing we'd really like to do in the near future with planning is have a workshop about how planning does engage and does do outreach to communities that are apt to be affected by potential developments. 2 raised hands. Okay, Gwen, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know if there would be.
Oh, sorry, I'm saying Gwen, but go ahead, Gwen.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. That you may want to add for the June meeting input for the annual Congress of Neighborhoods, because they've there's been a lot of changes and restructuring, and the deadline, it's a strict deadline. I think July 1st to submit your workshop proposals. So if you want to take advantage of the attendees and input, whatever, that might be a good time to do it, or come up with a proposal and run it by everyone and get some feedback on it. So.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you. Gwen. Gwen, you are still muted.
Hi, thanks. Just so you know, Patrick O'Donnell, our local state assembly person, had put in a resolution to approach the federal government regarding funding the cleanup of the DDT out there in the channel, and I'm hoping that others might provide a letter to the committee or to their assembly person in order to support that and move it forward to the federal government.
So Gwen, we had this agenda for the advocacy committee meeting, so join us and we can discuss it there.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Anything else? Mindy, go for it. You're muted.
So, where can I find the schedule for the meetings for the various committees, the meeting times?
We have, so a couple different ways. If you go to our Get Involved page, that can probably walk you through a lot of it. And also we have a pretty handy new calendar. So if you go to the events tab at the top, and you can go to the calendar and you could see things there as well. And you can always email me if there's something that's not clear.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, it's 8:31. That's pretty good. Thank you guys for being part of our experiment as we grow and change. Thank you so much for your contributions, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Thanks, Lisa. Good night.
Thank you, Dawn. Hi, Martasa, how are you?